Morning, everyone, and we appreciate you docketing with us on the sales docket. Today, I have a close friend, a client, and a brother from another mother, my man, Rodger Moss. Thanks for joining us. Rod is a partner at Brown Rudnick and also an NBA agent. Rod's background in law goes probably, what, 20 plus years, Rod, you've been doing this?
28 this year.
28 years. So along those lines, the whole point of having Rod on the call was that even though we remain in this legal space, I think growing up in this industry, a lot of lawyers are business development people in their own right. So I think there's a lot of gems that Rod can share. Rod and I talk offline quite a bit about building business together, building business for other people. And Rod and I actually work with a group of people where we're trying to give back to the younger community in the States and in the UK. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to spend some time with Rod and get some gems from him. So, with all that being said, Rod, thanks for joining us.
Mm.
And if you could just give us a little background about yourself and history, and then we can dive into some of the things that I think will be vital for you to share with our docketing group.
Yeah, happy to do it. Um, Spent most of my life and career in Orlando, Florida, as you know. That's where we met. Um, I started practicing law 1998. It was a different market. I'm in DC now. I started my career doing like medical malpractice, insurance defense, that kind of stuff. Um, I'm a corporate attorney. Um, Meat and potatoes today. Yeah, I've got a sports, related practice, and that's where the MBA certification stuff comes in. But I think, we've talked about it, to your point, especially if you're going to be a partner in a law firm. But I think this is true for any organization where you achieve any sort of managerial type status. Like everybody's a business development person, I think, like kind of no matter, or certainly in sales, right? Like I sell legal services. And particularly as I'm, gotten more senior, I'm really selling legal services of the firm and, my other partners. But, my trajectory, um, I wasn't like, I'm not one of those guys that grew up thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna be a lawyer. In fact, is probably the exact opposite. It's not something that I thought that I even could do until I got to undergrad. Like I said, my first job, I was doing insurance defense, medical malpractice, and hated it. Like I absolutely hated it. I did know once I got to law school, I knew I wanted to do corporate work. I was always told if you want to make money, go where the money is, and like
Mhm.
business has always kind of made sense to me. But I also like I had to get a job, so like I was not top of my class. I finished. I believe I'm right about this. I believe I finished 10th out of 200. I finished 10th in my class from the bottom, Steve. So it was like, I'm serious. I think there were 9 people, that did worse than I did in law school. So take that for what it's worth. Um, but also like so I hated doing medical malpractice, insurance defense, covers, all that kind of stuff. I did it every single day from the day that I got hired. I work 7 days a week, and after a year, I kind of realized like there's no possible way like this can be, my life, my job. Like I said, I wanted to do the corporate stuff. So I started cultivating business my second year, as a practicing lawyer. I started doing commercial collections is the very first thing that I did because I had a family member that had a business that I worked for years coming through school. And I'm like, hey man, I know you got money out on the street. I can get it for you. I did it on contingency, and it built from there. And then, uh, like again, I built my own practice from second year on, and I've not. I mean, it's been the same for 28 years.
Yeah. Go ahead. I don't know, Rap, if you have a question, please.
So just to break this down, and again, Rodger, this is truly meant for the next generation of sellers coming up through the space. What is a typical partner track these days? I mean, if you're coming, as an associate, how long is that partner track? What do you, because I know partners have to generate and bring customers, right? So clearly you saw that from an early stage. What was that track for you? Did you kind of sit there and say, okay, I want to be a partner by X, and the way to do that is go out and culminate it? It was just natural through.
I would say it was more, maybe more necessity, Steve, right?
Mm,
Like, because again, like I knew that I hated doing what I was doing, right? I didn't understand the medicine. Like
yeah,
it was very weird to me that I knew how to try a case. But I'm doing these cases where, I've got experts telling me that like there's a myocardial infarct and the blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't go to school for this, so I could do this
right.
stuff. And I'm like, I hate this reading medical charts. So yeah, no, I think it was more necessity. I think there's probably a lot, about my personal background. I mean, I pretty much have been self-sufficient since I've
Mm,
been working full time since I was 15.
mm,
So, I came into the profession with a mindset like I didn't have a safety net, right? And it's like I I I, I quickly kind of, I guess, figured out the game, the business model. I think that's important for any person in any organization, but certainly if you're going to be sales, like you got to understand how the business works and where you fit within that business. So I saw that like what I was doing, my effective rate doing what I was doing was $40 an hour.
mm,
And I instantly went right, like I was the highest rate in the firm when I started doing especially when I was doing the contingency stuff, because, like I had some of the files where I'd literally just write a letter, and I would get my client like 80K, right? And I'm getting a percentage of that, and my boss at the time was paying me 35 grand a year. Right. So my effective rate went from $40 an hour to 300 something. Like I was billing out at more than the part in the firm. And I was like, I'm going to do more of this. It wasn't so, the partner track, I think has definitely changed over 30 years. And it's definitely, I'm in DC now. The bigger markets are much, much different, generally speaking, in that respect. I probably would have made partner had I stuck at that firm, after maybe 6, 7 years. That's, about the zone. But it really, what has not changed ultimately in any organization, my opinion is that like if you're touching any aspect of sales, if you're bringing home the bacon, that gives you the most leverage, period. And for
yeah.
sure, that's how it works inside of law firms. I'm sure it works in your industry. It's the same. And so, for a lot of the various metrics, and everybody gets evaluated and everything else, the one that matters is what goes into the bank account at the end of the year. Like that's winning. All the rest of that stuff, like it may contribute to it. And that's what I figured out, and that's where I have focused since my second year.
Tim taught me that lesson very early on because I became a sales manager and Tim had to report to me.
Yeah.
And I walked in his office and I think I was bitching about some report he didn't do. And he looked at me straight in the eyes. He said, Rap, you don't treat a thoroughbred like every other horse. He goes, get the fuck out of my office and leave me
Yeah.
alone. I kid you not. And he was right because I sat there and I'm like, why would I mess with my top rep ever? I mean, you want to hold everybody the same, but it's a valuable lesson there that once the money comes in. Um, Culminating business, like where where did that come from in your background? How did you develop that? How did you know to start that? Where do you focus your efforts now in the networking and actually bringing in clients to the law firm?
Yeah, so like I said, I started. I call him a family member, not blood. I started working full time at 15 at a gas station.
Mm,
Very, very happy and blessed that I got that opportunity because I had. So at the time, this is '88, right? So if you remember Black Monday, and all that stuff in
Mhm.
'87, right? Like, so we had moved from Columbus, Ohio to Orlando, Florida when I was a kid. My parents got jobs, so we were super happy. And then they both lost their jobs. And so, coming off of that stuff, like it was tight. I remember my dad called a family meeting into the living room, says, "Hey, we're gonna be out on the street next week. This is what this means." And yeah, like it was, real stuff. And so I went to Albertsons grocery store, see if I could be a bagger. They said I was too young. I went to McDonald's to see if I could work there. They said I was too young. I had um, I had some buddies that were engaged in other business activities that offered to get me started on that. And then the gas station thing came up, and again, I was super blessed to get that as opposed to some other opportunities. So that same I knew, and that same man who got me through high school, got me through undergrad, got me through law school. Once I had that first year of like, okay, like I knew his business, I knew what was going on, and that was my first call. I was like, hey man, I know you have this stuff, and so for at least the like junior professionals around me, I always tell them like people think that you got to get to a certain point before you start developing business. Like I disagree with that. Like you can develop business like immediately. And I believe like, you should talk to friends and family and not saying that you necessarily get business out of them, but like that's your immediate network. And so, to me, you're building relationship and you've got relationships there. So that's what I did. I was like, I know you have this thing. You don't need to pay me unless I collect. It was win-win. And then, I'm able to stack now on top of that. It bought me bandwidth, within the firm. Cause again, my boss is paying, which is fine. I'm not like shitting on it, but he's paying me $35,000 a year. I had a similar conversation where he called me in his office complaining about hours. And I'm like, I don't hear about hours, right? I brought in 3 times what you pay me like in the last 6 months. I know how this stuff works. Like, leave me alone, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then like the rest of it was just building from there, getting out in the community, meeting more folks, doing that kind of stuff. Today, it's a lot of the same, I guess. I mean, I don't know how. You all are like maybe a half generation ahead of me, but I think we're similar in terms of how our generation, I'll say, have built our books of business. Like it's the culmination of relationships like over decades, but also for me it's getting out on the road. Like I don't the professionals nowadays like trying to win business over Zoom. Like I just don't understand that. Like I go and see people. So like I'm on the gas. Like I'm traveling probably 2 weeks out of the month, and I will go anywhere in the universe. If there's business there, I'll go get it.
Yeah. So a couple things. Rod said he started working at 15. Rap, how old do you think he is? You
All
can't
right.
mess up. Huh?
50.
Yeah, well, Rod, you 56?
I'm 52. Be
52.
50.
So we were hanging out, me and Rod and one of his other partners, Wayne Dennison, who I'd love to get on here, and we're hanging out at Monday after the Masters. Things are going great. We're having a good time. So obviously, some people know that I grew up with a few of the members of Hootie and the Blowfish. So we have this episode where it's just a blast. We're having fun, and one of my old high school friends comes up to me and says, "Hey, is that your son?" I was like, "Fuck you."
Wow.
I'm like, "My son? My son's
Yeah.
21." So, Rod looks like he's 12. So it's just interesting. But along those lines, man, Rod, it's funny because, I've had the chance to hang around you. I've had the chance to hang around Wayne and some of the other partners in the firm. And it's interesting because, like you said, you're on the gas. And we do a lot of traveling together where we're commingling and trying to build business. But, the one story I want to tell the sales docket is that when we were at Monday after the Masters, Wayne Dennison, who's a renowned lawyer at Brown, literally as we're in the bar, he's just like, "I'm going to go start talking to people." And he literally walked around the bar introducing himself to any and everyone. And I just thought it was amazing because those are things, Rap, that we do, right? As
Yes.
business development guys, when we're in a scenario, you can sit in the corner, you can sit at the bar and do nothing, or you can go, kind of go out and put yourself out there to say, hey, you never know. And Wayne came back to me and was like, hey, man, I ran into Dean Feldman's cousin. Dean is the lead guitarist, right? And I'm like, well, that's awesome. Did you tell him I grew up with Dean? He's like, yeah, that's how I started the conversation. So I think it's unique when you have these scenarios where we look at law firms and partners and other situations where it is all business development. And I guess part of what I want to explain to the younger people out there on the sales docket is that it is up to you to control that environment. The worst thing someone can say to you is no,
Yeah.
right? So you got partners, renowned partners in Rod and business development people who still stay on the gas and still put themselves out there. So I don't know, Rod, if you can kind of share a little bit more about why that is what it is that you do, or, is that the only way really for you to kind of go get business, or do you see any other way to do it?
I think there are multiple ways to do it for sure. I think everybody's got to kind of find their style.
Mhm.
Not everybody's going to be comfortable necessarily, albeit I think that you got to be open to being uncomfortable. But also, to me, I think that authenticity plays, right? So, I mean, yeah, everybody's doing sales, but like everybody also knows those environments where it feels salesy, I guess. And
Right.
that's not my style. And I'm not saying like I'm not shitting on it, but this is not my style. Um, and I would say my style, like I just don't know any different. Like I have always worked hard. Like I don't know there's no shortcut. So, for junior professionals, um, I often have conversations with folks where it's like, yeah, you're eager and everything else, but there's no substitute for experience. Like nobody comes out of the box with it. Like again, like on this call, there's probably 100 years of experience combined.
Mhm.
Like you can't substitute that. You got to wax on, got to wax off. And then there's consistency. Like like is every day. I wake up every day, literally, on the grind, and that's part of it. And so like over time, those things have paid off. But I think that from a stylistic standpoint, for me, where like authentic relationship, you know, like just hanging out, getting to know people for who they are as humans, um, and genuinely like knowing about them, caring about them, that has been successful for me. Golf for sure is my number one business development tool. And it doesn't have to be that, a lot of people like, oh, I'm gonna get into golf. Like it's cool for sure if you can do it. But like where you find those things where you can find your tribe and loop in, right? You know this, Timmy. We play a lot of golf together. I mean, that's how we met,
Mhm.
and how we do a lot of business together. And so, like you can find these opportunities where various things can line up. um, I would say the opposite of that, in my experience and observation, I think people can smell inauthenticity
Mhm.
and it just doesn't work. Like if and so if you're going into a situation with just this idea of like I just need to get from this person, I think that turns people off. Like humans, I think, are wired for that.
Mhm.
So yes, there's this mindset of like, I have something to sell. Okay, I sell legal services, but really, like my pitch, I guess, if you will, is like, do you need help? If there's something I can help you with, by the way, even if it's not me doing it, like this is
Yeah.
Yeah.
throughout my career, I've said, if you have an issue, a legal issue, make me your first call. And I'm not saying that I will do the thing, but I will help you find somebody to take care of this issue.
Mm.
Mhm.
And I genuinely like believe that. I genuinely like that's an actual thing. And I've had clients that I don't even remember helping, where 5-10 years ago they say, hey, I called you, I had this thing. You said you weren't the right person for the thing. You put me on these other people that helped me out.
Right.
Now I got this thing that's you. I want to hire you. I think that if you have that mentality of service, right,
Mhm.
helping others, being you know, like again, humans like are wired for that. You don't want to feel like somebody's just there to take from you. And that's been my thing. Like those are my elements, and I've stuck to them.
That's very cool. Rodger, can I ask you? So I remember, Tim, I don't know if you remember this, but it's kind of flashbacks and coming back. Like I think early on in our career to kind of differentiate ourselves, we were like trying to teach attorneys how to sell, like going
Yeah.
in and talking to partners and saying, hey, we know you're going to go into a beauty contest, you're trying to get business, we're sales guys, we can help you. Rodger,
Yeah.
in the law firm experience, is there an active methodology to teach associates to engage in what you're doing, which you seem to be doing very naturally, but I know a lot of attorneys don't have that innate capability to connect the way you do. I mean, I already feel a connection. I already love you, and I just met you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, which is an innate ability. I think Tim Garner is one of the best ones at that. Like, it's just it's there, the humanity of him and the connectiveness. But people either have that or they don't. Can you teach that? Does a law firm try to help you with that? Can you describe that a little
Definitely
bit?
here. Yeah, we've got a business development curriculum.
Mm,
Andrew Sherman and Dylan Kletter lead that, and we've got various lawyers, including myself, that pitch in on that. I would say that it is not as ubiquitous as it should be. Most lawyers, like law firms, are full of very weird people, and it's a collection of very weird human beings, right? So you got like these type A really smart people, but people that are like good at this thing.
yes.
But for the most part, like there aren't a lot of lawyers that are like, really cool, really personable. Now I would say that you end up typically seeing, the better relational business development lawyers, right? Like they stand out, and they stand out for a reason. So Timmy's talking about Wayne Dennison, like that. You could drop that dude off anywhere. You blindfold him, ship him anywhere, and he's gonna pop out. He's gonna meet people and walk away with a client. But like
Yeah.
like you cannot help but love that man when you meet him, and he's just a genuine, awesome human being. That's not that's like we're not made up of failings of those types of
Mm,
professionals. So my experience over the years, like certainly my first firm that I worked at as a kid, like zero training, and for the most part, law firms are terrible at teaching the business side of law. Lawyers are very, very smart, but lawyers to me are the second worst business people on earth, next to doctors. Um, and so, like, there are a lot of firms that be well served having, folks like you all and other, you know, BD professionals come in and like, hey, like, let's talk about this kind of stuff. But we're very actually genuinely fortunate here that it
Yeah.
is a curriculum, and there's materials, and it's practiced, and but it probably also goes to I guess the success of the firm. I don't know.
yeah. Can I ask
Yeah.
another question, Timmy? Because I have so
I,
many.
I knew you were. I'll just be quiet
We
until
were
you
worried
just.
about questions. I've got like 200 of them. So, and I'm just going back to my early days in my sales profession when I was looking at like, you go on to the law firm and you're looking at the associates and then you're looking at the partners and I'm like, oh, look at the associates that would probably like me. I'm like, that's kind of how I approached it. For a salesperson today to approach a partner in a law firm, right? And you must get this all the time. If people are vying for your business, what advice would you give them on how to actually break through that door? I mean, I think you mentioned it earlier, right? Kind of how can I help you piece, but how do you start the relationship? Like what would get you're a partner in a law firm, someone reaches out to you as a salesperson. What is that hook? What is that piece that's going to help them sit there and say, I want to get a conversation going with you. I want to understand your business, and I want to see if I can help.
Yeah. So one, again, I think it's a combination of things, and walk through them. And it's a lot of the stuff that we talked about, general elements, right? Like you got to be consistent. You got to, you got to be willing to be open to venturing in areas where you may not be so comfortable. But all right, let's say, first of all, like in general with any sector, like you got to go where your targets are, right?
Yeah.
I believe. So again, like if you're just hanging out, and yeah, you can do things like write articles but that to me is like a very, very low percentage. So if we take like me and Timmy, we met at a conference, a lawyers conference. So I think Timmy was the only service provider, right, to lawyers there.
Mhm.
We happened to meet in at the golf course. But okay, but again, that's an easy, right? Like, so pick whatever, there are obviously conferences, but there are other things too. Like, I like to go to things like if I'm looking for business or new business, let's say, like, I like to go to conferences where there aren't a bunch of lawyers, right? So brilliant on Timmy's part. Like, let me go to this place where they're not a bunch of me here.
Yeah.
And again, like we happen to just strike up a conversation. Like we're standing next to each other. Oh, hey, man, right? And it was a genuine, conversation. So I know for me, I never mind. It does not bother me at all. Like any solicitation, period. Like you be out on the street, like the people asking for money. You can call, email. None of that stuff ever bothers me because like I'm in the same boat,
Right.
right? Like the cold calls, and they're on a percentage basis with me, they're highly ineffective, right? So you've got to identify like your targets, but then my experience is it takes multiple touch points, right? Like it takes follow-up. It's a lot of work. Like it's,
Yeah.
because again, you're building relationship. So, like it's cool for sure if you can find something to vibe with somebody on, right? Like, if I'm having a call with a new prospective client, typically, the best case scenario is like I know who I'm talking to. Either I have done research or I've got my marketing team, I've got my legal assistant, like I study who I'm about to talk to, right? So I can understand, because that's the thing, like you need to know your client, you need to know what their issues are, you need to know how their business runs.
Yeah.
Because if your goal is I'm trying to understand how I can help you, well, how do you do that if you don't know this person? If all you're doing is showing up saying, hey, I've got this product, the product costs this, it's better than the other people's product. That's not how I've been successful in cultivating my best clients. I've not ever been the cheapest or the most expensive, and I don't compete on price, right? I compete on is, I am one of the best on earth at what I do, and I'm going to make sure you get 6-star service. Again, like whatever you need. I had a client who thought his daughter got kidnapped in Orlando, Florida. He called me first, right? And we went out together with my private investigator to find his daughter. I've had people call me like, over health things, but I am there to genuinely be of help, be of service, and to understand what you got going on. And that takes time. So like you can call me, you can email me, again, doesn't bother me. 99.9% of the time, like it's, delete. It's certainly not answering the phone. I'm busy. Right. But if you're reaching out and you're like, hey, here's this thing, I'll do this too. Like I'll send people stuff. Hey, I came across this article, it made me think of this. This might be helpful to you. I just give that stuff away.
Right.
Go ahead, Rap. Go ahead. This is
So
you got to understand, Rod. The conversation we had prior to this call was, I don't know what to say. I'm nervous now. It's like this. He won't stop. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, well, you know him.
I got all the
There's
time,
curiosity here. There's
Yeah.
curiosity. Because I think fundamentally as a salesperson, I think authenticity is critical. Getting to understand people's problems are tantamount to bringing a solution and offering what you do. But there's also the philosophy of getting to the no as quickly as possible. Like understanding that this person in front of you is not going to buy from you. Like Tim and I had a client we had to take for lunch every month, but we never got business from her. And at some stage, I'm like, this is ludicrous. Like, at what stage do we say no? Like, but we always held on to this belief that it's going to come. But some clients never come. Like, do you have a philosophy of I've got to get to the no at some stage and then move on to find something new, or is it just this altruistic? Just I'm here. If something comes, it comes.
Look, yeah, I hear you. I'm also look. I got to keep the lights on, right? So, what I do, I've got like my target list, if you will. I've got my client list, and I'm identifying, where either I've got like good revenue, bad revenue. I'll get rid of that. But then on the target list, I have a client profile that I've built. Here's my A client. Here's my super green client.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm concentrating. So it's not so much get to the no, it's for me understanding fit. Like you're not ever going to be, in my opinion, there's no like you're not going to be the fit for everybody. You're not going to have, if like if you need a divorce, I'm definitely not your guy. Now still call me because I got people that I know and trust, like family, and I can get you connected. But as far as being the service provider, I'm not your guy. And there any number of, it could be price, it could be like, any number of things. So I'm not trying to get to know, I'm trying to understand fit. And then that's where I'm going to be genuine. Like if I genuinely believe like, hey, I'm a great fit for you, I'm going to stay, in contact, and be open. If I'm not a good fit, then again, what I'm going to try to do is help you find that fit. And over time, that for me, I guess it's been what I've done it, but it's also been the successful thing. Because again, back to the authenticity thing, like it's, I do a little bit of work in Africa, right? And I could identify for you the jurisdictions. It's Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, right? So I just named 6 or 7 countries. South Africa, definitely for sure, like a couple other ones. Well, there are 54 countries in Africa, right? And it always boggles my mind where I've met, lawyers and other professionals that say, well, I'm an Africa expert. I'm like, really? Like the whole continent? All of it? That's awesome. Right. And in general, I believe like you're not going to be all things to all people, and that's okay. Like find the fit, find the match. And that's what I want to get to as quickly as possible. And then of course that adjusts. Like it's, I'm constantly monitoring, but it's not as again, I'm not like everybody can have different philosophies. I'm not a numbers game kind of guy that way. Like you could do the thing where it's like, I'm just going to make 10 million calls and, like run through the numbers and get a percentage. Yeah. Okay. That's just not how I've done it. I have built deep, meaningful relationships, right? The same client where I'm going out looking for his daughter, I've been through now 3 major downturns, right? Since I started practicing law. And so, when I can call a client and be like, hey man, like this is what I need from you, right? I need you to pay my bill. Or, if a client's like, hey man, can you get me this thing Friday? You know what? Actually, this week, could I get it to you Tuesday? Yeah, you can't, right? Like that level of trust, but it's a collaborative process. It's for me, it's not purely transactional. Like we're in this thing together. Let's, we can lift each other up.
Yeah, and there's so much that you said there. I mean, we all, I sell software. We all kind of develop the ICP, the ideal customer profile, right? Like, who do we need to sell this to? I've never, until you just said it right now, as a salesperson, it's always been on a high level. Here's who we want to focus on. But from a sales perspective, that was really interesting what you just said, because you have developed this is my target, an ideal buyer of what someone would buy from me. And I don't know if every salesperson has actually actively done that, because it can be pretty broad, right? I just want to deal with someone who deals with litigation or e-discovery, but haven't defined where success has come from on that end and who that is and what role do they have. I think that was a really great lesson right there, because I
And
don't know
it's
if we
more
all do
than
that.
just again, it's more than just like the consumer profile of like this
Right.
consumer buys these services. Like, yeah,
Correct.
okay, that's a start. Like, that's a good start. You know,
Yeah.
like again, if you're looking to buy family law stuff, that's not me or my firm at all. So, like, I should not go to the family conference expecting that I'm going to have a high hit rate for customers.
Yeah.
But if it's also it's personality, right? It's like how do I have the kind of personality and fit where like it's a good vibe for you, right?
Yeah.
Because if not, like that again, that just getting revenue is to me not the end of the story. Like you want good, efficient revenue, right? And so like you want clients that are paying, like that are happy to pay your bill,
Mm.
right? Like I understand the services that you've provided, you've clear explanation, and at a bare minimum, you want clients that are not surprised, getting their invoice,
Right.
Mhm.
right? And so like you got to know, um, like beyond just like this the service side, because the thing is for kind of everybody, there are a ton of great lawyers and law firms out there. There are a ton of great e-discovery service providers out there, particularly if you're talking like software. Like you guys are not selling software, right? Software is a tool that you have available, but that's not what you're selling. What you're selling, we're all customer service providers. And
Yes.
Mhm.
so, like, are you aligning with that customer service? Now, there can be different, I'm a, I'm good for those consumers that are looking for first class. If you're a first class buyer, like I'm a good fit. If you're like, nah, I'm gonna fly standby and sit in the jump seat, and that's what I'm looking for, and I want to pay for that, like that's all I want to pay for. I'm not like a good
Yeah.
fit for that.
Yeah.
No problem. Let me get you in this other line, right? And so you create a gap in expectations if your buyer's like, well, here's the stuff that I want beyond just whatever the software or the legal thing, like, right? Like there are all these other things as well where like, look, if you want to fly Frontier, there ain't nothing wrong with that. But you're
I'm
just
going
sitting up
Delta
front,
first. I got it.
you're getting champagne, you're getting all this other stuff, and you're going to pay for it for sure. Like there's a cost to it, right?
Yeah.
But like, so build your profile and understand like where you have alignment. And again,
Mm.
that's the happy customer is the customer that's going to be the repeat, come back, and I believe, I mean, y'all haven't brought it up, for junior professionals out there, like every junior professional entering the market now needs to understand their differentiation from AI,
Mm.
Right.
right? If you cannot figure that out, like you're not going to have a job, period. And so the one thing currently that has to me the longest runway is that human connection, that relational thing. Like that's not going away as near as I can tell, like over the next generation or so. And in
Mm.
fact, I believe what's likely to happen is, there are going to be more and more consumers that lean into, well, hey, like I still want that thing. And so again, like, you all are not selling software. Like, the software is going to change, technology is always changing, but that relationship connection thing, I know with Timmy, like if I have issues or problems, like that's the first call and he resolves those issues. When I first opened up my own practice, I remember when, like I got my banker, right? There's a difference between like you go on and get the automated thing and push all the buttons and like, okay, fine. But when I can pick up the phone and say, hey, Steve, like there's a problem here, like, you need to fix this. And consumers are still going to want that at least for a time. Now, maybe it goes away at some point, but
Yeah.
human thing is going to become more important. And if all you're doing is like your job isn't drafting emails and writing reports and that may come along with it, but that the job is this, and
Yeah.
it's got to be
And
in person.
and I think that's, if you look at your phases of your life, fitting that profile is important, right? At this stage in my life, that type of service is very important to me. 20 years ago, when I had no money and I couldn't even think about it, it wasn't
Yeah,
that important to me, right? So I think as you go through your professional career and identifying what's important to that other person and fitting them into that, I think that's such great advice. I really do, because I don't think we do that enough, right? It's always a lot of salespeople go in. It's about me, and I've got to get something out of this. You're saying slow down, understand who's in front of you, and pitch accordingly, right? Build that connection. And I think that's, I mean, I think Tim and I have always, part of our success has always been about service. It's always been about, we're here for you. I don't care what time of night it is. I don't care what type of day it is, but you got a problem, call me. If I can't figure it out, I'll find someone who can, right? I mean, I worked in the restaurant industry when I was younger. I mean, customer service is where you get repeat business, right? Because people will pay for that if they can
when
rely
people
on you.
ask me what I do, I say I make deals and I solve problems. I mean,
Yeah.
that for me distills it down, and that's kind of universally applicable across sectors.
Yeah.
If you can do those two things, you're going to get repeat business. Now, you might be able to go out and sell somebody on a thing one time, like, okay, but I also want repeat customers. Like, those are my best customers, right? I want a
Sure.
stable full of folks that are happy, and I got clients that I've done work for them for now almost 30 years. Like,
Yeah.
that's, you know,
All
Yeah.
right,
So,
AI's
Saji,
not
your
taking
turn.
my job.
I'm going to shut up. I'm going to try to shut up, but go ahead.
so two things I want to go back to the working at 15, and I mean you been working hard your whole life, and you even said there's no exception for hard work. So I want to make sure we reiterate that with the younger generation. But when we talked about being on the gas, I mean it's as simple as me and you were both in Chicago last week. You were in Chicago, and then you had a conference, and then from Chicago you went to we went to
Vegas.
Virginia, right? We
Yeah,
were
well, back to Virginia. Yeah, and
right.
then
We
out
went to
to Vegas.
Chicago, Maryland, Virginia, Vegas, and now at the end of this week we're going to Georgia. And I bring that up just to say, here's a gentleman who's 52 years old, is a partner at a law firm. In the last 2 weeks, he's probably been home 48 hours. So for the
Yeah.
yeah, so the younger generation needs to understand that there's no exception for hard work. So that was the one thing I wanted to bring up. And we talked about that even in our last podcast with anger, that we didn't even know any better when we were at Icon, right?
Yeah.
We worked 14, 15 hours a day and we didn't know any better. So there's no exception for hard work. That's number one. And and,
Well, and
and you
for the
brought
underscore that, Timmy, for the junior professionals, what I would say that as well is it apparently, unfortunately, if you can do that, right, you will stand out in this market. So and understand the we Generation X people like this. These are your bosses, right? These are the people that you're working for. This is how we came up. Like, we don't know any different, and so if you aren't, like, on the gas, like grinding and like, you know pedal to the metal all the time, that also stands out,
right, you stand out
negative
either
way,
way.
because we're like, what are you doing? So, you know, I believe very strongly, and I think every generation like says this about the previous generation. So that's another thing to understand our psychology. you know, you just named all these trips, Timmy, right? That we're doing, and that's true. And I hadn't been home, and that is a sacrifice and a cost. I don't call it hard work though, right? Like, if you feel like getting on an airplane, flying first class, eating delicious food, playing golf with clients, all that kind of, it is hard work. I've dug ditches, I've tarred roofs, I've washed dishes at Disney, I've worked at Honey Baked Ham, I pumped gas. I've done everything that there is to do outside, right? Like, that to me is hard work. I went to law school so I could work in the air conditioning, and I do. And you know, there is, however, an element of like, yeah, like, it is, like, I get in the office typically 8 a.m. and I leave typically, if I'm in town, 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday. And then on a Friday, like today, I was in before 8, but I'll probably leave 4 or 5 o'clock, have some time off. It's a holiday weekend. But like that's standard. Like
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
minimum.
Yeah.
It's a lesson we try to it's the lesson we try to ingrain in our children, which they don't they look at things a little bit differently right now, Rodger, right? The balance becomes a lot more important these days in their very
Yeah,
privileged
so I'm
lives.
glad you used that word. That word is a lie. And
Mm.
and I don't know how it got out into the workforce. What you're doing is juggling, in
Mm.
my opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? If you try to find balance, that shit does not work, right? Because again, if our jobs are really helping our clients, like if that's really what it is. I mean, I've called Timmy at midnight. Hey man, this thing is happening right now, right? And he's like, I'm on it. I've called him on Sundays, but I get the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Your clients like are having issues that are an emergency, and someone has to do it, right? So for the junior professionals on the call, part of where the gray hairs, I got 5 or 6 in there, get grouchy is again, like I'm here, you know,
Right.
all the time. Someone has to do it. Like if my client is calling, I'm answering the call.
Yeah.
Right.
And understand that someone will answer the call. Someone will do it.
Right.
So if your thing is, well, which like make a choice, everybody gets their choice. But if your choice is, I had a young lawyer tell me, I don't work weekends and I don't work evenings. And I'm like, okay, but like, then this job is not for you.
Right.
This job, like I'm sure there are jobs out there, but like it's not this one. And same thing for your audience and pretty much everybody. Like just understand if that's the approach that you're going to take, like you're making a decision, which is fine, but that's not what is required, and it's certainly not. Now when you all are running things, do it the way you want. You're going to have AI, all this other stuff, but that's not where you are now. So
Correct.
the handful of junior professionals that I have around me that are elbow to elbow with me, right? Like they're the ones that are matriculating throughout the firm. Because also being present and working hard is how you get the opportunities. Right. So Steve, you were asking me earlier, like, what was your plan? My plan was I need to keep the lights on, eat food and take care of my family. Like that's the plan. Like that has to happen.
Yeah.
There's nothing in this world that you're owed. Right. And no one has ever given me anything that I have ever gotten. I've certainly had help for sure. A lot of help. But there's no, like, you got to go out and do it. You can't you can't just sit here and there are people I know in my house will say, Steve, you got kids, you raise your kids the way you want, Timmy. But for my children, they were raised understanding that in my house, you're not allowed to say it's unfair. Like that's not, it doesn't matter. Like you still got to figure out a way to get it done. So whereas certainly when I was younger, 15, whatever, I was frustrated with circumstance. I'm blessed today to have had the experience of like, well, like you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. Like my family didn't go out on the street. Right. I figured it out. I went and got a job, and was able to and that's been my mentality. My family will always eat. Full stop, because I will do anything. And ultimately it's about working, the thing of like, well, I'm here, so like I get the thing, right? Well, no, like showing up is just step one. And just because you work hard doesn't mean it's going to work out. That the two don't, how many pitches have y'all been on where you worked however long, right? But then you lost it to whatever. And maybe you lost it, by the way, to somebody who was inferior. but they had whatever relationship or like whatever like that is how the world works. So if you're not prepared to show up, work as hard as you possibly can, to me, hard work beats talent every single time.
Mm.
Yeah, so along those lines, maybe not what we're doing now is hard work, but no shortcuts. There's no shortcuts to getting it done. I don't know how much time we have left and what you want to finish up with rap. I did want to ask Rod would quickly share. You brought up AI, right? And where we're going and obviously and Steve's company is uh relies a lot on AI and even through Repario and what we do, we're focused on that as well. But would you mind sharing one of the things that you did with your boys in reference to AI and making sure that they are on the fast track of understanding that?
Yeah, no problem. Not only with my children, but certainly with every professional in my office environment, and basically everybody that I come across. Again, if you're entering the market, like AI is a disruptive thing. So it's like, technology has done this throughout human history, where there's like the thing that happens, fire, like that changed everything for human existence. And
Sure.
before fire, like the human mind couldn't fathom like what comes next, right? Computers, automobiles, airplanes, like all of these things were technological. The internet, right?
Yeah.
Internet didn't exist, when we three on this call were kids. Like it didn't. So at each one of these technological leaps, it has meant a lot of different things, right? How many horse and buggy mechanics do you all know? I don't know any. They probably exist, but before automobiles, right? Like there was the world centered around horses and right, there's blacksmiths and all these things. And then now we got cars. And so that goes away mostly. The same thing is happening now, right now with AI. Jobs are going away.
Yeah.
And that is a natural occurrence. So again, the work hard thing, like not a guarantee. For the junior professionals, like you need to understand how is it that I'm going to provide value to society and get paid for it, unless or until like the whole monetary system just goes away. And I don't that's not going to happen in the next 20 years. So like you got to figure out how you're going to make money and eat, unless you are independently wealthy. And I presume most of the people that are watching this are not.
Right.
So, for my kids, my legal assistant, the associates I work with, number one is you need to use AI, period. Something. Doesn't matter what it is. ChatGPT, Harvey, Claude, I mean, there's a million of them out there and they continue to proliferate. Use them.
Yeah.
So for my own kids, I said, look, pick something. I don't care which one it is. My oldest picked Claude. My youngest picked ChatGPT. Come up with a project, right? And work with the LLM to do that project. So my oldest is trying to build a thing with his AI where it's not just going to invest, but like it monitors global occurrences, markets, everything else, recommends based on what it sees that's going on, investments, and then he's trying to get it to like actually make the investment. Wow. He hasn't figured out how to do it, but like that's what he's working on. The youngest
Can I give him some money?
Yes. Yes, I am. 100%. I'm giving both of them money. The youngest has decided that he is going to sell custom computers. Right. So they got the lights in it and
all the gaming computers. Yeah.
There you go. He's going to do that. So yes, Steve, I'm going to fund both of them eventually. But even beyond that, right? Like, so it's not just like doing the thing, but they're working with their and they got names for it. Mine is called Jarvis. I can't remember what they name their things. I think anyway. No. And it's not just building the business, but it's help me build a business plan. Let's build an investment proposal. Although that's going to go to Dad, we can't SEC rules or whatever. Yeah. And understand how to work with these things to build a business, and then I don't care if it works or not, although I think it will, because there's already evidence. There are a lot of folks that have built things where they just run themselves. And I think that's
Agents.
where things are likely going.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing to me. And I was at Clock last week in Chicago also. So Clock is the consortium for legal operators. And I was there the year before, and I think AI was there was apprehension, and today there's excitement, right? There's excitement about the possibility of what it can do for you, right? And so I think that's the big change that I've seen in the last year today is we've gone from, hey, this is coming to no, it's now here, and how are we going to use it and adapt? I mean, adaptability becomes critical. And I think we've all been adapting to technology changes our entire careers. I mean, we started in paper, right? Now I've got Mark is a first pass Gen AI review platform that does a better job than humans. I mean, it replaces that function of first pass contract review because we've built a digital lawyer. It's done. It's there. You can't run away from it, but you have to adapt to it and you have to learn it. I tell, I mean, I have a buddy of mine at a big law firm. I had dinner with him. He's a partner at a law firm, and I'm like, how's the AI, how's your AI adoption? He's like, I gotta get on. I'm relying on my junior guys. And I looked at him, I go, you are insane. If
That's
you
right.
don't sit there, get someone in that office of yours and start teaching you how to use this, because you'll be the horse and buggy.
I'm for sure using it, and I agree with you. Like,
Yeah.
at least for a period of time, I don't know how long it's going to be. AI is not going to take your job, but the professional that is leveraging AI will take your job. Because the
Yes.
thing is, to your
That's a
point,
great statement.
it will make you more productive, right? So, like for my 16-year-old, as an example, who's building this computer business, what he's really learning is not how to build computers and sell them, which he kind of already knows how to do, but he's learning how to build and ultimately sell a business. And he's going to be able to like scale that. And so, in the next 2 years, he will have gotten his MBA, right? Just deal with AI, and who knows how many businesses he starts and all that, but that's where it's going to go. And so, again, for all of the junior professionals that are watching this, like if you want to have a job and work, you should be leveraging AI to its absolute maximum. Watch the news. Facebook just laid off 10% of their workforce. You can run through all the different, and also have a mindset and understanding, right? So just like the horse and buggy mechanic couldn't fathom being a rocket engineer, right? There was a trajectory for it. That horse and buggy mechanic had a skill set and a knowledge base and a relationship base that was able to translate, like, okay, like I'm not working on these things anymore. Now it's cars, now it's air, right? And so just be open to living outside of labels, and know where you have, again, differentiation and adaptability within the market, and then roll with that. Like there are going to be roles that come up that we can't even think of right now because like our brains won't go there. But just rest in the knowledge of like applying the principles of working hard, applying the principles of consistency. I've got, a knowledge base, learning how to learn all of these things, right? It's a tool like anything else. Like if there were folks today that were saying like, yeah, I want to be a salesperson, but I refuse to get on the internet, I'm not going to use that tool. Like that would be absolutely insane. Yeah. And it's the same with AI. Figure out how to use it. It's going to scale. It's going to get smarter and smarter, but that can make you, the human, more effective. And that's how you're going to show value to even if it's you, even if you're going to run your own business, like you need to use AI.
Yeah, and I will tell you that the people piece is critical to the adoption of it. So, for example, if I was today in a position where potentially AI could take my job, like a contract reviewer, I would sit there and go, well, I understand the legal phase of documents and reviewing. And if you look at Harvey today, they're taking legal engineers and they're building nonstop, and they're pulling people who have an in-depth understanding of the industry and turning them into people that professional services that can help out attorneys build out and solve their problems. So the shift is there. right? I mean,
I
you
feel
just
like
have,
they've been talking about document review going away for the last 30 years.
it's
And in
coming.
my experience,
It's not,
we've been
it's
saying it
not,
for 30
it's,
years,
yeah,
but
it's
the
not
data sets have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So we all remember the banker
the box.
boxes, right? And going through that, right? And how many gigs now is every matter running? I mean, it's into the right.
No,
And
no,
so
there's no doubt that the data, at least from our perspective, data is just it's exponentially growing, right? I mean,
yeah,
Copilot is creating so much more data.
right.
I mean, there's so much more that's creating data. I think what's changing is that there are now tools that can actually reduce the information before it actually has to be reviewed by an attorney and automating that process. And I think that's the difference. So reviews never, quote unquote, ever going to go away. I think the percentage of what people actually will be looking at and then have that embedded with reasoning from an LLM to augment their understanding of what they're looking at is the future.
Yeah,
But we
so I don't
could
disagree with that. And now we're back to the point, which is right. Like you got to be able to even if for the document reviewers out there, right, understand how to leverage these tools because
correct
that's still like you want to be the one that gets picked. I
100%.
definitely agree with that. Even for partners and law firms, everything else, like the industry is going to shrink. It's not going to go away because that smaller pool is going to be able to leverage more. So learn how to use those things.
Bingo. This has been great.
What's your time frame, Rap?
Oh, I think I could go on for another hour. Do you want to end it with just our last question? I mean, we can't break that tradition,
No,
right?
well, why don't you go ahead and hit Rod with the, our final question. Since you've been talking so much on the podcast anyway, might as well
I mean,
let's
that's
not
why I'm
upset
turning
the
it over
apple
to
cart.
you. This is your question. I love when you ask this question. Go ahead, Timmy. Take it over. I I mean, you
Uh,
give me a fresh subject like this, I'm diving in, buddy. I can't hold back. But go ahead, bud.
well,
Ask.
Rod, we have a closing question that we always ask. It's kind of like, what was the moment in your career or the pivot that you had to make in order to get to where you are now? What was the changing thing that kind of made you uh, move to being in legal or going to Brown or wherever it is that what was the deciding moment in your career that made you make that move?
Okay, then the best answer to that probably is how I decided to get into law at all, right? So I gave a brief, um, touched on like my high school years, and again, very fortunate to have gotten a legitimate job,
Because it could
and
have went a different way, huh?
well, 100% could for sure. I mean, and particularly if taken into context, right? Like I'm looking to support my family, right? And so, like, what would you not do for your
Right.
family? I'm going to do whatever. I would also say that um, for me coming up, I'm very fortunate that um, in general, my family, like my grandparents, educated on both sides, college, so I had that example. Um, but I'm one of those humans that came up like I never thought about law school or medical school or anything like that. Like I didn't think it was for somebody like me.
Hmm.
Right? And somebody like me, and um, like I've shared a bit about my story, like on LinkedIn, that kind of stuff. I was told coming up in school by counselors that I was good with my hands, right? This is the stuff you need to focus on, and I believed it at the time.
Mm.
So I did not think about law school until undergrad. I went to University of Florida, and at least then, I don't know what they do now. As an incoming freshman, like you would come the summer before for a few days, a thing called preview. And preview, like they take you around. You have like some student that walks you. Here's where the cafeteria is. Here's what that is, and blah blah. Right, like that thing. And at the end of it, and all the people that were there for the preview in an auditorium, and then the preview students or whatever up on stage, and everybody would step out and say like I'm Tim Garner, I'm going into business, I'm Steve Rapp, I'm doing whatever. And the only black male on the stage was a guy named Johnny Kincaid. And Johnny stepped out and he said, "I'm Johnny Kincaid and I'm going to law school." And the crowd was like, "Ooh, ah," literally, like it was. And, as a young man, for me, it was like, oh, wow. Like, I didn't realize that that was,
An option, right?
yeah, possible. Like, really? And so like I started looking into it, from there. But I've always credited Johnny Kincaid with
That's very cool.
being an unknown example at the time. For me, it was enough having like an exemplar that I felt like I could relate to and say like, oh, okay, like maybe this is a possibility. And it's something that throughout my life and career I've always thought about, particularly um, once I came out into the market. I think for all humans, it's true that like you don't know who you're influencing one way
Right.
or the other. It's one of the things that makes me very thankful that I was able to end up in law, because I for sure could have ended up a different exemplar that I watched and that I was around. And again, I don't say that with judgment, right? Like, I mean, I feel
Right.
like a lot of people that I grew up with, like, they were good human beings, just trying to like figure it out and make it
Mhm.
through. And I mean, for as interesting as my trajectory was, I mean, I know people that came up hard. So I don't judge that. I'm very thankful, but it's always been something that I've carried personally, and where it's part of what informs my heart to give. Because it's not about like there's nobody that's any better, any worse than you are. Period.
Mm.
Um, so I don't view it that way. Like laws of again, it's a good job. Like they pay me fine. I'm in air conditioning. I get to do cool stuff. I travel around the world. I got interesting, like that's fine, but it's not who I am. It doesn't it
Right.
doesn't define who I am as a human.
Yeah.
Um, and I know what it's like to be a human that cannot conceive of any opportunities outside of this.
Mm.
Right.
And so
Right.
I like to be a part of anything that can speak to a class of humans that says, well, hey, if you think that's it, like that's actually not true.
Mm.
Like there are, and it doesn't mean that you've got to pick this or that. Um, but there are other things out there. And by the way, if I can be here, like you for sure can do whatever you want to do. Like
Right.
and
That's what I
you
felt
can
the
go
first
either
time I saw
direction.
Tim. How I felt the first time I saw Timmy G give a sales pitch. I'm like, shit, if he could do,
He can do it.
Roger, and I will give. I mean, my first sales call I went on, and when we worked together, was following Tim Garner around, and I watched it, and something inside of me said, holy shit, like I could do this. Right? It's kind of in the same vein that you're talking about is we have to set the example, whatever we and to as many people as we can to show what can be done. So I love
I
that, man.
certainly think you should be mindful of it, right? Because again, you can you can set an example unintentionally, and
Mm.
that
Right.
for me has been super impactful. And again, I don't say that with any judgment. Like I'm the chief sinner amongst us. I'm not saying like I'm a better human than anyone, but I have been thoughtful of it and been mindful of it because I've seen it,
Yeah.
right? And so there is an aspect of like just being you. Like you don't know like that person around the corner that's looking at you like, huh. And that could be something where like you've now inspired that person. You know, I caught up with Johnny, some years later, and I wouldn't tell his full story um, in a forum like this without his permission. But suffice it to say that when we met for the first time in person, because it wasn't you know in undergrad at UF, um, I told that same story. He heard the story, and so when I saw him, he was he came up to me, he's crying, like he just I'm like, hey Johnny, man, like, yeah, man, it's just great to meet you finally, for the first time, and it's really cool. Like, this is what happened. And what I will share is that what he told me was that he was crying because not because like he was so overwhelmed and happy, but because he shared that he recognized that he'd inspired me to go to law school, and he felt like that he was now reflecting on a not so good example that he thought he might have been setting back home, and it only just hit him how he might have influenced somebody in a different direction.
Mm.
Wow.
And that's the real part that has always stuck with me, because like it was purely unintentional, like in either direction. But that is the reason why I thought I could even, like,
That's
okay,
pretty
this is
awesome.
actually something I could do. And then like I worked at
Did
it, and
it.
it's never been any different since then.
Well, Roger, this has been outstanding. Really. We're gonna do more of these now, but really appreciate your time. I mean,
Anytime. Okay,
I'm
more
sorry I
lawyers
spoke the
aren't so
most.
boring.
I get excited and then Tim doesn't shut me up. So it's problematic in our relationship. But this has been fantastic. Timmy G, great guest. Really appreciate you and the thoughtfulness of bringing on Roger. This has been fantastic. I'm
I
gonna stop the
appreciate it.
record. Any other words? Any last minute words, Timmy? Anything to add?
No, man, thanks. Well, we'll talk afterwards. Absolutely, we're good.
All right. Hey, this has been another sales docket. Roger, really appreciate your time. Fantastic. Timmy G, always a pleasure.
All right, bro.